So as you settle into and explore who you want to be as a writer, it's really important in the early days to work out how to get out of your own way. How do you minimize the friction so that there's potentially as few barriers in between you having a thought, thinking through the thought, writing the thought, and getting it out into public. Now, that doesn't have to be the way that you operate. Maybe you want to write a book every single year and you slow things down. The challenge with that, though, is people won't buy your book unless they already know you. That's one of the truths about publishing, that you kind of need a following before you can actually publish in any meaningful way, unless you're just ridiculously lucky to the point that it's like winning the lottery. So how do you remove the friction from this? First of all, you've got to work out your tech setup. It could be pen and paper. But make sure you know where that pen and paper are at all times, that they're near you so that when you have a thought, you can jot it down. Maybe use notes on your phone. You could collect titles and themes in your phone. One thing that I do, because I tend to get overwhelmed by the ideas that I have, and I'll write them down somewhere and then they'll get lost, which is okay. The more I do this, I'm like, if I wrote it down and it disappears, it disappears. If I really want to write it, my subconscious will remember and it will haunt me. It will bring it up and I'll have a surge of energy and I'll find myself writing. But what I'll often do is I'll get the start of a thought together. It could be a cheeky title or a key point or an analogy, and I'll just write it in my phone. And then under the point or the title, I'll start to describe some of the problems or symptoms and then simple ways to solve them. And at some point, if that thing, that set of thinking haunts me enough, I'll sit down to write. Sometimes I have a flow where I know that I want to write at a certain time of day on certain days. That's what I did with my book. And it's also what I sometimes do with my social posts as well. But the main thing is to work out your tech stack so that you're not thinking about where things are. I don't overthink my tech stack. The result is I've got files all over the place, but also that doesn't matter right now. I'm happy to pay that price because I'm just trying to increase my output. And that brings me on to the second point, that as you get out of your way, I would encourage you to think about quantity to get to quality. It's not that quantity matters more than quality. It's that through writing, through having a lot of thoughts and getting those thoughts down, your quality can improve, especially if you read books on writing and develop your technical skills. So quantity over quality, personal belief. Connected to both of those things, you might want to time box your days or your calendars. Put 30 minutes aside, 10 minutes aside, an hour aside. When I first started blogging, I'd often write in the evenings and I'd give myself an hour because we had a baby and then 2 babies in the house. I might sit down at 10 p.m. and think, oh, I gotta write something now. Let me get something out. I want to write every week, maybe twice a week. And I would write and then publish it, possibly not full with errors, but possibly with a few errors. I can go back and fix them usually. Some platforms you can't. But focusing on quantity to get to quality will keep you in the mindset of practice, 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 and eventually good things might happen.
When it comes to ideas and writing, I use numbers a lot. I use numbers to trick my brain into coming up with more ideas and not stopping. But I also use numbers to organize the ideas and how they'll come to life in my head. And sometimes I write in listicles, which is totally fine. I know some people look down on listicles. A way to do this is to start circling around a topic. You might have a hunch, a thought, a mini epiphany that comes to mind and you're like, I think I want to write that. Well, write it down somewhere and then give yourself the challenge to rewrite it 5 times or 10 times. And then what you might do is settle on a draft title or a draft idea for what you want to write about, and then challenge yourself to come up with 3, 5, or 7 supporting points. And as you do this, the idea will start to take shape in interesting ways. You'll allow your brain to get through the obvious and initial thoughts that come to mind, and hopefully you'll push yourself into surprising yourself with where you end up. So the main point with effort is trying to work out how to keep yourself flowing, how to have systems and potentially technology or software that don't get in your way so that you can do the main thing that you have decided to do, which is to write, connected to also thinking about writing and then publishing.